So
that
shall I start the episode then?
Yeah.
Shall we get into it? Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Expressions of Podcast. We're in season 3, and today we're going to be talking about TV, our favorite TV shows, kind of what's come of it, a little bit about like how TV has evolved over the years. And yeah, I think it's going to be a really fun conversation. But before we get into that, I'm just going to say hi to Brian. How you doing, Brian?
Awesome. Stoked for the show tonight. Season 3. Come on. Who'd have thunk it? As Mark would say, we were re-signed up for another season. So that's
we haven't been canceled yet.
We haven't been canceled yet. Yes.
Oh, just wait. I'm on here still, so.
John keeps on trying. No, I'm very excited. When we talked about the theme of TV shows, of course, being the generation that I am, I always talk about that, being the generation that I am, because honestly, there's a huge gap in the way things are today from when they were when I was a teenager. I mean, when I was growing up and maturing and being an adult, like it's so different now from even then. So this conversation could be a lot of fun.
The same thing here. Like,
yeah,
you can watch a TV show on a cell phone. You can watch a TV show on, a computer. When I was younger, it was like we had one TV, maybe 2 TVs at one point, and that was all you could watch TV shows on when I was younger. And then like things changed, and you got the smartphone, and you got your laptops and your computer. I remember dial-up internet, so I remember waiting there.
I think it's funny that you say I remember dial-up internet.
Yeah. Yes,
I remember no internet. I remember black
I don't
and white
remember
TV, 15 channels. You had to go up to the roof and turn the antenna. It's not. I mean, that's the technology.
Yeah,
the technology is one thing, but the content is so different now. The themes and the freedom that people have to get into different kinds of content, and how what was taboo, when I was a kid, isn't even close to taboo today. Like talking to Sean before we started recording, some of the things that are talked about on podcasts and other things that are readily available to any age group now are things that are like when I was younger. I mean, you would have had the
play the story that Sean was talking about earlier at the end of the podcast. I'm pretty sure as like an attack onto the episode, but that was only part of the conversation.
I know that was only a little part, but I mean that's what I'm saying. Really, like the way people are communicating these days is so different. So I'm really excited that we're going to talk about that. And I'll shut up now and let us say hi to Sean.
Yeah, Sean, how are you doing?
Great. I'm fantastic. Hooray for season 3. Fuck, I'm. You know what? I'm stoked to be a part of season 3. And this is a very cool experience. I don't know how many times I gotta open my mouth and say that shit for people to realize that this is probably the coolest fucking thing that's ever happened to me, aside from other shows and whatever else. But this
is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me, except for everything else that's cool.
That
was the cool stuff. This is partly cool.
Expressions is fun. It's an honor and a privilege to be on this show with you guys, and definitely having met Brian 3 years ago now, probably just over. It's definitely not where I thought I was going to be, hanging out with you guys and having these very long, in-depth, and interesting chats with each other and other people. It's kind of fun.
I knew.
That
night, I knew.
You knew?
I knew we'd be doing stuff together.
You knew? He felt the disturbance in the force.
I did. I felt the disturbance. Exactly. There was something about you, man. It was just like, I'm looking at the photos. I'm thinking, oh, these photos are so cool. I got to do something else. I either was going to be in one of my workshops as a skater or something. So this is better though, because I get to actually learn about you and find out more about you rather than just watch you fall on your face, which you never did. You never fell, which was really cool.
I mean, there's still time for it. If you ever want me to come out to to a day trip or shoot, and you guys want to come to a park, I mean, I'll be more than happy to eat shit all day for you. So,
speaking of which, Aurora just lost it.
Aurora, you gotta get yourself together, okay? It's a very traumatizing thing.
I am so sorry. It's a feeling bad kind of situation, but then it's also like funny. Like I feel bad that I'm laughing too.
It's okay. I specifically tell those stories on our show because I don't really care about what other people think of what happens to me, right? So I think it's funny. I mean, if I were to ever get back into stand-up comedy, that would probably be my ultimate. Hey, just randomly dog shit flew into my nose once. Whoa!
Don't give too much away because we'll leave that until we'll share that story at the end of this episode.
I don't think that's enough context for anybody to understand what happened.
You'll never know until you listen to the end.
All right, so Aurora, what do you think we're going to get into tonight?
Well, I'd love to hear a little bit, I guess, before we get into like more of the history of anything, of TV shows and stuff. I'd love to hear what your favorite all-time TV show is.
Ooh, that's a tough
or narrow it down to maybe like a top 3 or a top 5. We could do that too.
Goddamn.
It's hard.
Like I'll say my favorite, and then a minute from now I'll have another favorite.
Okay.
I mean,
that's fine.
There's so many good shows. I'm going to start off with what I'm going to say is a show that everybody should watch, even though it's like horrible. I guess it would be called my guilty pleasures. This is The Greatest American Hero. Have you guys ever watched that?
No.
All right, so
a little synopsis about what it's about.
Basically, a school teacher finds a suit that was left by aliens, and the suit turns him into a superhero. So whenever he wears this suit, he can fly and he doesn't get hurt, and he's a superhero. And this is like the 80s, right? So like the special effects are pretty lame. And anyway, they had a huge song. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free.
I've heard that song before.
You know that song? Yeah. Everybody knows that song.
Yeah.
So that's the Greatest American Hero theme song. And what I love the most about it is the show started off with the teacher's name was William Hinckley. And if you know history and that time of our life, our world, William Hinckley was actually the name of the guy that tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan. So the show started off, his name was William Hinckley, and then all of a sudden his name changed to something else, which I forget off the top of my head, because they didn't want to call him the same name as Who Shot the President, which was just a funny fun fact about the show. But I think it only had a few seasons. I have it in a box set. Shelly got it for me.
So when the season, like when it first came out, his name was this, and then the president
then the assassination attempt happened.
Okay. And then they changed his name. Wow. Yeah. That's wild.
It's a crazy show, and it's just like a spoofy 80s kind of a sitcom-y superhero kind of show. You can see like when he's flying, he's on strings sometimes. It kind of looks like that, but it's fun. I think Sean would get a kick out of it. It's hokey and it's got its moments. It's kind of like a Knight Rider feel, that era.
Man. Knight Rider's so good.
Another one. And then I'm going to have to say, as far as what it contributed to the world, I'd say MASH is another one of those shows that has to be mentioned in a top 5 for anybody. Have you watched MASH, Aurora?
I've watched some episodes a long time ago. It was definitely a show that my dad watched.
And that's the era. Yeah. Absolutely. Set in the Korean War. I always thought it was Vietnam when I was growing up, but it's the Korean War. Alan Alda is, the main actor, and he also directed so many of the episodes, and you could always tell the episodes he directed because they were always so serious. They were tearjerker episodes where most of them were comedy and fun, lighthearted, whatever. Whenever he directed something, it was always like trying to say to the world, look, we have problems out there. We can address them on this show. And he would always, roll that politic side of the world into those shows, which was pretty different. And the final episode of MASH, I think, is still, if not the most viewed show of all time, if not the top 5 shows of all time. So yeah, that was a big show. The TV is, I mean, it's impacted so many things, guys. TV, it just permeated our culture so much that I don't think that I go through a day without making at least 10 quotes from TV shows that I've seen. I mean, it always bothers me every time we have conversations about movies and stuff like that, music. It always bothers me when people say that movies and music don't influence how we act and who we are.
Yeah.
They do. They absolutely do. Whether it forces you to go out and kill somebody or not. I mean, you might have a screw loose and then you go and do that. But I don't think the movie or the show makes you do that. I think it gives you the idea, and then your history and your crazy or whatever it is kind of guides you to whatever outcome that is. But yeah, I absolutely.
I mean, that's a really dark way of spinning it for sure. But like, there's other like really amazing things that come out of TV shows too.
Culturally, the world changes. I mean, if we look back at, I've been trying to think of the name of the show. Carol, what's his name? The son-in-law's name was Meathead. Oh, not All in the Family. Was that it? Oh, he was like a racist father, and he had his kids. This is my era. I should know the name. I'm gonna find this.
Married with Children?
No. Well, there's another great show. Meathead, son-in-law, and it comes up right away. There it is, right there. Rob Reiner show. All in the Family. It is All in the Family. Yeah. Did you guys ever watch that?
No,
Am I talking Chinese? I feels like I'm talking Chinese to you too. Right? Okay, so All in the Family Sammy Davis Jr. was on that show every once in a while. He's a black guy. I don't know if you know who Sammy Davis is, but he was on that show as like the neighbor. And there was racial stuff. And this is, when was the show All in the Family made?
A long time ago.
It was.
Galaxy
it was
far away.
original release January 12th, 1971. So I was born June 28th, 1971. So that was like right in my 71 to 79. So think of back in 71, created by Norman Lear, which is interesting in itself. Getting into conversations about race and getting into homosexuality and getting into all of these really touchy topics in a sitcom platform. It was game changing for improving relations and all kinds of things. So yeah, absolutely. There's the negative side of the way culture is depicted in these shows, and then there's the positive side for sure. Anyway, those are a couple of my shows. I talked a lot. Sorry.
This is.
I've got a whole list. I could go on and on and on. So I'm going to let Sean say a couple that you really like.
Okay. Okay. First off, I'm gonna have to say Community. Community was probably one of my top.
I love Community. That's a good show. Yeah.
6 seasons in a movie.
Love that.
I can't wait for the movie. I'm gonna fucking watch it so much.
I didn't know they're making a movie.
They're making a movie.
6 seasons in a movie, baby. Let's go.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, no, that was a really good show. For me, it was probably like I think the episodes that got me were the paintball episodes. That shit fucking killed me because of all the movie references they make, and then it's so funny. Like
so well done.
Yeah, I remember me and a buddy from high school, my buddy Alex and I, we actually did like the Troy and Abed like handshake, and he was my Abed, I was the Troy. So it was good. We bonded over that, and it's still one of those great shows I still watch to this day, and it's so good. Alison Brie she's gorgeous. She's hottie.
Who is she in the show? Which one?
She played Annie.
Annie, okay.
Annie Edison. Yeah, she's hot. She's like so innocent, so hot. I don't know why. Shouldn't be talking about that. Oh my god. My next one is it only ran for one season, which fucking it scarred me as a child that it only ran for one season. But it was Spider-Man, the new animated series, and it was basically a continuation after the very first Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man movie.
Okay.
Neil Patrick Harris voiced Peter Parker in Spider-Man. And to me, it was so good. It was fantastic. I had the biggest crush on MJ. And I mean, I still do because I'm a nerd.
But that's the point of MJ. That's the point of MJ.
Yeah. Everybody's supposed to love her.
But like in the show, like they, for some fucking reason, people who make cartoons, at least the cartoons that I like, they always make like that one main character, like the female one. They always make her sexually appealing, is what I should say. Not to sound weird, but like she was hot, and I was like, I gotta find me a person that looks exactly like that and acts exactly like that. But that's impossible because I'm not Peter Parker, and I haven't been bitten by a radioactive spider, because if I was, I would die.
I love that you put so much thought into that. That's exactly why you don't have MJ, because you haven't been bit by a spider.
Exactly. But no, that was another one of my favorite shows. I have it on DVD just so I can always watch it. It's one of my favorite shows. Another one I have is called Strike Back. It started off as, I think, an older, like it was like a new aged kind of war show. Andrew Lincoln was in it. The guy who plays Rick Grimes in The Walking Dead, he was in it for a while. But I watched the American version. So they had like this American guy that came in, and he's like this drunk piece of shit guy, and then he just comes in, but he's like super good at killing people for his country. Like it was really good. I think it was like 6 seasons that I watched, and every single one of them, my eyeballs were fucking super glued to the television. Like it was fantastic. Really good show. The way they go about like the combat was fantastic. It's kind of cheesy at certain points, but like to me it was a fantastic show. I love that kind of shit, like I like watching action, like anything like meatheadish. My brain is already like fixed to it, like white on rice, like it's fucked. So there was that. Strike Back was really good. And I think the last one, it was probably one of the most recent TV shows I watched. It was The Terminal List with Chris Pratt. Now, it just came out, I think, on Amazon Prime. That one was really good. Again, just meathead shit, right? Where it's just new combat, and the way he like moved, like, he had like weapon control, all that other shit, like the way he like trained with other people, like it really shows in his acting, right? So I was like, okay, like this show's friggin' awesome, right? So it was cool to watch that and be like, I want to do that, but I'm too scrawny, and I probably would die if I got pinched or something. I don't know.
Well, that's why we like TV shows, isn't it? Because we can suspend disbelief.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
That's why you don't find me watching, lovey-dovey, emotional TV shows or anything like that. I can't. I don't. Why? Why would I? I mean, we have that in real life. I can. My wife and I can show love. We can show joy. We can show happiness. We can show all these things. What I can't show is jumping out of a building, shooting a bunch of people in the head, and smashing through another window and being like, "Ha ha!" That shit doesn't happen. So that's why I like movies. It's just, you suspend disbelief. You can just, or TV shows, and you can just live vicariously through these produced, safely done stunts that are just so impressive to watch.
I can't watch this. Have you guys gotten on the fad, like the Love Is Blind shit?
I heard you talk about that on your podcast.
Oh my dear God!
So tell me about this show. Like, why should people watch this show?
Okay, don't watch the show. Don't.
Oh, I thought you liked it.
No. You have a very warped sense of who I am, Mr. Ryan.
No. I thought that's what you said in the podcast. You're like hooked on this show.
Dear Lord, no. That's John. John loves that shit for some reason. He loves television that is so absolute. Okay. John and I are very different when it comes to movies and television. Music, somewhat similar, but like, when it comes to movies and TV, we are like total opposite ends of the fucking earth. Now, him and a lady friend of mine, we went out for dinner to celebrate. It was a good occasion, so we celebrated something, and the whole time, I'm sitting there in silence trying to read the contents of a burger on the menu, and they're talking about this show and like, oh, this guy's this dick and he cheated on her and he said this. I'm like, okay, guys, this shit is scripted. From front to back, it's scripted. It's garbage. You are sucked in. Your brains are molten lava, diarrhea garbage. Like, this is bad. It's bad TV. Why you are so enamored by this is beyond me. But it's okay. Everybody likes what they like. That's just how it is.
Okay, so that's kind of reality TV in general, though. Like, reality quotes in quotes, right? For people who are listening to this. The reality TV is so screwed up because what they think is reality is so produced and so controlled for specific outcomes that, yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't think I've ever watched The Bachelor or any of these other kinds of shows. I have no interest. Survivor, I like. Yeah. Big Brother, I like.
Yeah. Okay.
Not so much now as when it first started. But as far as like those love shows, like Naked on a beach,
Naked and Afraid,
Naked and Afraid. Why?
Gross.
What are you trying to prove? I don't understand.
I can't. Anyway. I can't deal with that shit. And the more like if I have to like sit next to somebody who's watching that, like the amount of times I'll like I'll be like turned around like this, and if I hear something stupid, I just kind of like
say what?
What in the Mick fuck are you watching on your TV? Like, I get so confused by that. Then again, I'm a guy who likes, all this fantasy, sci-fi, action bullshit, right? I'm a meathead. That's just how that works. I'm a masculine guy, somewhat in my movie and TV show taste. I don't know how else to explain it.
I love that so much. Okay. Aurora, I haven't heard a thing of movies and stuff that you like to watch yet.
You mean TV, right?
TVs.
Yes.
TV shows.
So
Stranger Things, I can see.
Yes, Stranger Things, I'm wearing it today,
is really good.
Is good. I loved the first season. I got this right after the first season. It's a Christmas sweater, but it's Stranger Things. And there's kids on bikes. And then there's the upside down. There's like the monster from the upside down at the bottom.
The Demogorgon.
The Demogorgon, yeah. There you go.
That's cool.
So, yeah. I got this after the first season. So,
nice.
Yeah, it's a Christmas present from my mom. Anyway, they actually drove to the U.S. to buy it for me, which was, I was like, why would you do that?
They drove just to buy the sweater?
They drove to... to buy the sweater for me because it was like at Hot Topic or something, and they wanted to have it in time for Christmas, but if they ordered it online, they wouldn't have it in time for Christmas, so they drove across the border, like, through Niagara Falls on the other side of the border to the Hot Topic that's like near there to buy the sweater for me, so that was awesome.
And we won't have people drive to our Woodbridge store to get
and
something.
And my younger sister.
Shout out, Mom!
Jeez, yeah. That's
awesome. That was really cool. But, I found out about it after the fact, and I was like, oh my God, you didn't have to do that. But it was awesome. And I still wear it to this day. So yeah, I do like Stranger Things a lot. First season, I loved. The second season, I kept watching the other seasons because I like the characters. The fourth season, the one that just came out, made me feel excited about the series again. A lot of callbacks to the first season and in a really good way where it wasn't cheesy or whatever. And then you're kind of seeing everything come together as the beginning of the end type of thing. Because the ending is going to be season 5. So I think that's really interesting. What I really love about that show is the characters. What I love about most shows is the characters. Always really like Hopper, and the Hopper and Eleven dynamic, the father-daughter type of thing. And the new character that was introduced in season 4, Eddie, really connected with his character a lot. And I know that Mark has made references to Eddie quite a bit because he's he's the head, Dungeon Master of the high school D&D group called the Hellfire Club. And he's just he seems like this tough like angry, scary guy. Like I don't want to give away too much about what actually happens, but he's just like this terrified kid that's kind of like, you know, like struggling and dealing with like a lot of crap underneath. And he has like this artistic side and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of very interesting characters with a huge like backstories in that show. And then there's like a lot of that nostalgia, and the way it's filmed is just amazing.
Well, it's also set in what, the 80s or something?
Yes. Yeah.
So
70s or 80s.
70s,
late 70s to early 80s kind of thing.
Which is always fun. I love watching stuff like that because it makes me feel there again, you know?
Yeah. No, it's pretty cool. One of my other favorite shows is The New Girl. I will watch that show over and over and over and over again. Have you guys watched it? No? Have you,
No,
Sean?
I've been told to. Apparently, I resemble a character on that show. Apparently,
Do you?
Who's that guy? Whenever he gets stressed out, he goes for runs. What's his fucking name? Nick or something? I think.
Oh, Nick.
Yeah. Apparently,
I never would have made that comparison, but I guess.
I've been told. I don't.
You kind of. Yeah, you don't really look. Well, you kind of maybe look a little bit like, I don't know. But I can see it. I can see why someone would compare you to Nick. I just would have never even imagined that. But yeah, I love that show. It's just so quirky and awkward, and just like there's a romance a little bit, but it's sprinkled in here and there. And it's a sitcom. I love these like little slice of life sitcoms. I watch so many of them. Like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Community, and like The Office, which is playing right now. Andrew's listening to The Office. It took me forever to actually watch The Office all the way through because the first season into the second season is very cringy. There's like lots of just like awkward, awful work situations.
Well, you're also a store manager and have to deal with HR, and you know you are one of the better people I've ever met for thinking before you react to certain situations. I'm not that great at it.
And Michael is like in the first season is like the worst example of a manager. Like just the worst example of a manager, just being very inappropriate and just like crossing all the lines.
Yeah, but that was the appeal of the show for a lot of people.
Yes.
Like,
yes, because like they can actually relate to that because like I've definitely worked for people who have done some of the things that Michael has done. And it's uncomfortable. But then it's also like funny because they make light of it a little bit. It's just is very interesting. But yes, there's a lot of cringe in that. So I love those kind of sitcoms. But The New Girl, I would say, is my favorite, and I would just watch it. It just feels so like comfortable to watch it for me. I could watch it over and over again. What else? Also, Stranger Things. Favorite TV shows. There's just so many. There's so many good shows. Like there's a lot of good anime out there. I've watched quite a bit of anime, but the first anime I ever watched was Death Note. And to me, like that was like my introduction to anime. It's a very interesting kind of concept for a show. For those of you who don't know Death Note, it's like this kid finds a book that just like appeared to have fallen from the sky. And there's like simple directions inside the book. If you write someone's name in the book, that person will die. You can write next to the name like what kind of cause of death is like that person can die from.
That's far too easy.
And then it's like if they don't have the cause of death next to it like they die within like a certain amount of time, and like from a heart attack type of thing. So the whole reason this book came down was because like these like demon-like thing. It's called something else, but this demon-like thing gets bored and decides he's going to drop his death note into the world and see what happens, kind of thing. And the concept is like there's a detective that's trying to figure out where all these deaths are coming from, because that person takes it into his hands and is like, okay, I'm just going to kill all these bad people. And it's going to be really high quantity of bad people. And then what is the line of bad people, right? And, you know, some detective basically figures out, works on trying to solve this mystery, and that's what Death Note is about. And that was my first introduction into anime, but there are so many other animes that I've watched that are so interesting, but I guess the first one kind of sticks with you a little bit.
It is a hyper creative medium, absolutely.
Yeah,
anime in general.
It doesn't limit you to like what an actor can physically do, because
true,
you know, it's art. Yeah, there's a lot of, it's super creative in so many different ways.
So
yes,
these are shows that we like.
Yeah.
But culturally, what shows can you remember in your lifetime that have had the biggest influence on society?
Biggest influence on society?
Like, I'm going down my list here, and forget about just news shows, like talking about old news, Walter Cronkite, and all these other things that were very steeped in integrity and, you know, following a very, they don't put their own opinions into the news. You know what I mean? They just tell the news as it is, to the way news is today. And that transition from that staunchy old feeling news to, like, you know, Jerry Springer, that kind of thing. It's changed so much. And 2020, 60 Minutes, Geraldo, like, these are all very impactful shows that changed society in many ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we looked at actual shows, Sesame Street, The Muppets, Looney Tunes, and then you get into Dallas and Knots Landing and that whole generation of 80s, I don't know, what you call those things, dramatic TV series things. And then I don't know if you guys ever, I don't know if you were around for the 3D television craze. I remember Vincent Price's House of Wax was on TV, and we could all go to Max Milk and get those 3D glasses and put those on and watch the TV show from home. That was pretty cool. SCTV, another TV show that I think changed so many, not just actors' lives, but the way we do comedy changed. Do you guys ever watch SCTV? Please say you've watched some SCTV.
Once or twice. I was more into Mad TV for a while.
So Mad TV was definitely, I think, inspired. I can't say exactly if they were or not, but I mean, it's that same vein of sketch comedy television. Mm-hmm. SCTV from Second City Television had like John Candy and so many. I can't even think of the people right now. There's just so many Canadian, Rick Moranis, you know, Bob and Doug McKenzie, that whole gimmick. Mm-hmm. That was all from SCTV. Martin Short, just so many people from that whole era. It's just incredible, funny stuff. There's some skits that to this day I can just think of, like Johnny LaRue, when he goes into this room that there are all these women doing their laundry. Like, Johnny, I got grease in my shirt. And like, oh, you got grease in your shirt? Yeah, I put more grease in the machine. That'll help it. So he pours all the grease in the machine and walks out. Comes back in a little bit later on, and they're like, Johnny, all of our shirts are all greasy. You messed them all up. And he's like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Smokes a cigarette and walks out. Like, random, just stupid, crazy, funny stuff that you couldn't get away with today. I mean, a lot of the stuff, you know, very sexist. And
wasn't there one with Chris Farley when he does like, he's like, you're going to be living in a van down by the river?
No, that's Saturday Night Live.
Oh, fuck. We're so close.
Yeah, Farley was Saturday Night Live, which is another cultural, iconic kind of show that changed the way people do things. Like Eddie Murphy doing Buckwheat and Gumby and all these comedy routines that Eddie Murphy did, and Bill I'm having mind farts. Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Chevy Chase, like that whole thing just took comedy and just put it in people's faces, and we're like, here, we can be rude, we can be crude, we can do this on TV. We don't have to be all perfect. Yeah. That was hilarious. And then, of course, it got stupid. But that's all subjective. But these are all shows that have had like a huge impact in our world. what shows do you guys think that you've watched that really culturally changed how you think and influenced how you think? All of those shows influenced how I think. And Seinfeld, so many great shows.
That's a good question.
It's a really...
Because there are shows. I mean, it's hard to think of them right off the top of your head sometimes, but there are so many shows that have been on TV that we watch all the time. I mean, 99% of the time you turn my television on here and there's the WWE network is on right now. My wife loves wrestling, so I can think back through the history of my marriage with Shelley, and every Monday night we were watching Raw, pretty much, Some big culturally different shows. The day after, or just a couple days after 9/11, WWE was the first show to have a big public gathering of people in the States after 9/11. Significant stuff. So you guys are thinking I'm trying to stall by talking about random things.
No, but that's a solid question though. Fuck, I'm trying to
It really
wrap my head around that.
I mean, I can't really think culturally, on a cultural perspective, but if I think about, shows that kind of shaped me and formed me as a person, I can think to some of the earliest shows that I watched, kid shows and stuff that stuck with you, certain episodes of there's a show Arthur, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's certain episodes that I can recall, in my mind of that. And I think back to that and I remember learning this particular lesson or whatever it may be. And, thinking in my head to not do something or do something as a result of, what happened in that show and in that particular situation. Right.
That's the power of the medium right there.
Exactly. And there's so many good kids TV shows out there that teach very good lessons to kids on the way that they should behave and the way that they should treat their friends and the way that they should, share and stuff like that. And I think that is super powerful, for sure.
They should teach that stuff in school, don't you think? Don't you think in kindergarten there should be a class called humaning?
Yeah, but there really isn't something like that unless they've changed it a lot. I feel like there's not. I mean, there's, in kindergarten you would get in trouble if you didn't share your toy or
it's always teaching by abuse, it's not teaching by encouragement and
yeah.
I think there should be a humaning class, how to be a good human, how to forgive and how to communicate and just not simple stuff. Anyway, I'm squirreling. I digress.
It's very true. And I feel like there's a lot of these shows that teach lessons like this.
Well, a lot of parents will plop their kid down and say, here you go, learn about the world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that's also not good as well because you're relying on television to bring up your child. And that's not good.
Especially considering how the world's changed.
Yeah.
Right? I had a coworker at one point who, had a different view on sexuality and, saw, having relations with somebody. It's just it's only sex, not a big deal. And when she said that, my mind was just shattered. I was blown. In my era, sex is the biggest deal. The biggest deal.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
When you finally got it, you're old enough, you finally got it. It's oh my God, life has changed, right? It's oh my God. And then now it's just it's not a big deal. It blows my mind that the TV and a lot of TV has changed those social morals, right? And a lot of that's because here you go, kids, sit in front of the TV and watch. And irresponsible programming and other things were on there, and this is what people see, and this is what they emulate. But if you have good shows, super powerful.
Yeah, teaching good values, I think, is important.
Solid Gold. That was a great show. You guys don't know Solid Gold. That. Oh, come on, look it up, please.
But you talked about the Muppets earlier, and that is something that I watched at the movies and stuff like that. I don't know.
No, Muppets is awesome. Solid Gold, by the way, I was making a joke. Solid Gold was like an old Dance Fever kind of show. They get up and they dance around on their rollerblades, and it was just. Anyway, I was just being stupid.
That is kind of cool.
Culturally important stuff. That's how I learned how to dance, from Solid Gold.
Oh my goodness.
I know the white man overbite.
One show I watched when I was younger was like Happy Days. And I still do make
Happy Days
references to like Andrew, like, you know, hitting something and fixing it or
Yeah.
whatever. He's
Hey.
and you know, Happy Days was one of those ones that I watched. When I was younger, my mom like would not allow me to watch certain things. Like she
Same.
would not allow me to watch like Teletoon, and even what was Family Channel was one of the ones that we didn't watch. And so it was like TVO Kids was like the appropriate one. And then there was the one where like Happy Days and like Brian, you're gonna hate me for not remembering this, but it's the show with where there's like so many kids. The Brady Bunch.
Oh, okay.
That would play
because
on
that's
the-
what we use for our logo thing.
Yes. Yeah, because I was just like, I was remembering, we were referencing it to our logo and like pointing at each other and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, the Brady Bunch. And like other shows like that. So like I was able to watch those kind of stuff, but the other stuff that were considered like YTV and, you know, just other TV shows on the show, like I was not allowed to watch because some of the content was not what she thought was like children appropriate, right? And not everybody filters that out, but also like I was shielded from a lot of stuff that maybe I shouldn't have been shielded with. Like there's this
Yeah, does it help or does it hurt?
yeah, does it help or
I
does
think
it
it hurts. It hurts. Trust me.
Sean has a very similar perspective on this
Oh.
because we talked
Oh, I
about
do.
this in another episode.
My mom never let me watch Pokemon for some fucking stupid reason.
Yeah,
And
I
she
wasn't
was
allowed to watch Pokemon either.
Don't you think parents are like the worst things ever?
sometimes they
They
can
really
be.
control us in bad ways sometimes, don't
Okay,
they?
you know. Okay, I know this doesn't have anything to do with TV, but this is a movie. But has anybody ever asked you if you've seen Harry Potter?
Yes,
Have you both seen Harry Potter?
I have now.
Okay, good. I haven't
You haven't
at all, and
at
that's,
all?
That's the reaction I get every time. I'm like, yeah, I've never watched Harry
And-
Potter, and I don't really plan on doing it. They're like, you are broken.
I
Blame my mother.
haven't watched Twilight. I haven't watched any of that.
You are
I
very
haven't
lucky.
watched Lost. I've never watched an
Oh.
episode of Lost.
That's
Not
garbage
interested.
too.
So okay, you guys were talking about Love Is Blind earlier,
He was.
and you're also talking about Twilight and stuff like that. So like that was like Twilight was like my generation. I was like generation. Oh my goodness, it sounds like weird. I don't know. It sounds weird saying that, but like I remember in grade 9 when like the second or third book came out, and then someone's like, "Oh, this Twilight series, whatever," and you know, you're reading the books, and the books were actually pretty good. The movies were terrible, but I still watched them because it's like a nostalgic feeling. Like even though you know it's terrible, like there's certain things that you watch and because it's terrible, but it also reminds you of a time where I don't know. You guys are cringing just talking about this, but
Twilight. Ugh.
I remember. Okay, there's two shows that I remember watching that when I grew up as a kid, they were fantastic, and I realized that my uncle, who's like super awesome, he used to love this show. That we used to watch it together every now and then, but we used to watch Bill Nye the Science Guy. That shit was
Bill
dope.
Nye the Science Guy.
Still fantastic.
Yes.
On top of that, I used to watch Popular
Bill Nye the
Mechanics for
Science
Kids,
Guy.
and then Mighty Machines. Mighty Machines was dope as hell.
I remember Mighty Machines, but not as much as Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Oh man, did you ever watch Popular Mechanics for Kids
I've seen some episodes, I'm
With-
pretty sure, but
with Jay Baruchel? I think his name is, or whatever his nuts. What's his
yeah,
nuts?
there was a lot of those kind of shows.
They were fantastic. Oh, what about
anyway.
Uh-Oh? Do you remember Uh-Oh?
Oh no.
Oh no, this show is so good.
But I'm suddenly reminded of all these stupid kids shows.
My favorite kid show of all time is The Electric Company.
Oh man,
The Electric Company. Okay,
It might have
what
been
was
an
that
American
about?
thing. but it was like
Probably.
a bunch of kids, and they had a song. It's the Electric Company. It's just a big, fun old show. I remember I had a sprained knee, and I was sitting there for like 2 weeks, and I was pretty much just watching the Electric Company the whole time.
Yeah,
it's a kid show, but for like teenage kids instead of young kids.
Ooh, hold on, I got a good one. I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch the show. Me and my buddy would get together when we were like 6 or 7, and we watched the show called Static Shock. It was an old like superhero cartoon, but it was like, to me, like the comic book world and superheroes were like so new. Like all I knew was like Spider-Man, Batman, and Robin, and Superman. Like that was like my base knowledge when I was a kid, right? So when I watched Static Shock for the first time, it was my first taste at being like, wow, they're African-American superheroes, and this is fantastic. I love this. And Static Shock was probably in my opinion, the only redeeming factor of DC Comics ever, because Static Shock was fantastic start to finish. And it was a lot like a cartoon version of I think it's called The Jeffersons. Remember the guy who was like the cop? He played the cop in Die Hard too, I think.
Oh,
yeah.
No, that him.
That was another. That was the guy.
That wasn't the Jeffersons, but I know who you mean.
Yeah, it was a different show. It was another show, but he was also in a show, but he was also the cop in Die Hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, to me, it was like
Rock?
watching.
No, not Rock.
I don't know. I can't remember. But anyways, it was the same concept, right? Whereas like they displayed some form of like, like they try and get like the racial controversies and shit like out in the open, and they deal with that bullshit. You know what I mean? Like right there in the TV show. But as a kid, you're like, he's a superhero. Who gives a shit? But like now,
but that's the point. That's the real beauty of a show like that. Is it's really showing how this thing, a kid would see this as this is just normal.
Yeah.
Whereas the adult would see this as, look, things are changing, and you have to listen to this. Your kids are going to see this. We're teaching you the right way. I think those are the important shows where, you have kids like yourself who you're not African-American. You're seeing this and you're actually happy that there's an African-American show. That's important that they have shows like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
To me, that was fantastic because I didn't know that Black Panther existed. I didn't know that there was Luke Cage. I didn't know that, there was all these superheroes of different ethnic diversities, and I was like, man, like this is so interesting to me. Now as an adult, I watch this shit and I'm like, this is friggin' fantastic. Like I'm still waiting for like a bunch of different like female superheroes and villains and anti-heroes to hit the big screen, you know what I mean? Or even TV, like for that matter, like seeing all this
because there's
shit,
not
like,
a whole lot of women in those kind of roles, which
there
is
really isn't.
Yeah,
like it's crazy. Like even watching Teen Titans, like as a kid, like the original Teen Titans, because that shit was dope. The new Teen Titans Go is garbage. We don't talk about that. But no, watching the original Teen Titans and like seeing the diversity even in that was like super cool to me. Like as a kid you don't really understand it, but like as an adult you're like, this is friggin' way ahead of its time, man.
Yeah, especially considering like just half a generation before, what we were watching was like Benny Hill, where there's this old lewd British man smacking people on the head and seeing lots of boobs dancing around. Like that was the norm at one point. That kind of comedy all of a sudden, and then it changes to anyway. A lot of things have changed. I love it.
Yeah,
I like it too. Oh man, there's so many good shows. Speaking of like a superhero-ish kind of show, I really love Umbrella Academy.
Yes.
Show. Have either of you guys watched Umbrella Academy?
Absolutely, it's a really good show.
I dipped my toe in it once or twice, but I'm more of like if it has something to do with like actual comic book heroes that I know of, like I'm more into it.
That.
But like I got into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That one was really good. A lot of people say it's shit, but like the message that they displayed in it, like throughout the whole show, was like far greater than seeing these superheroes in action. You know what I mean? Like they actually like made the show with a very specific message in especially just in American society alone, like how everybody was like, there can't be a black Captain America. That's not happening. No, it's not feasible. It's never going to happen. Like a lot of people said there weren't going to be a black president, but then Barack Obama came and he did so much for the country, right? In my opinion. Yeah. But what do I know about politics? But think about it. Like if Captain America was originally created as a white dude with blonde hair and blue eyes, right? Not to sound like a completely fucking huge, skinhead. I'm not, I promise. But like to see that like they in this show, like not only was it like super good in terms of like the superhero like action scenes and like seeing these superheroes go from pages to like, essentially real life. And then, on top of that, they put in this message where it was like, the Falcon having to go through all of this shit in order to be the first black Captain America. You know what I mean? Like, and it was, to me, I was like, this is fantastic. This is brilliant. This is a message that kids need to watch this show. As messed up and as fucking, brutal as it can get sometimes, this is what people need to watch. Like, this is what we as a society and as a nation and a world need to understand, that there's room for people to become superheroes in their own right, Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever which, right? Man, woman, gender
and
neutral,
superhero,
whatever.
I think in this context, superhero is just a person of great importance.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Not somebody who has special powers per se, but just somebody who is important enough to be granted this gift.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of things that are coming out like that now, like totally changing a classic character and their look and what they're all about to, like changing their background, changing what that character looks like. Like, I recently found out that there's going to be a new Velma series, and Mindy Kaling is going to be the voice of that, and the character is going to be a more plus-size Indian woman version of Velma. And I thought that was like super cool. And it kind of fits in with like Mindy, right? And like how she looks and her voice is voicing her. So they made the Velma character look like her, even though Velma's been, the same looking since.
Are we talking about Scooby-Doo Velma?
Scooby-Doo Velma, yes.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, like she's, petite, shy, super white girl with glasses, like the stereotypical dorky kind of girl personality. And I think it's so cool that things are changing that way. Like a character can be changed or, in that way, and still keep the essence of that character and create this whole different series, because it's not about race and not about culture. The character is about how this person acts and reacts in these situations. And I think it's just so cool that we're getting to that point where it's that now. So I love it. And
I've never had a tie to that issue before. Like I didn't read comic books and I didn't read any of those things, so my context is missing from, a character being predominantly male or female or whatever. I just see it as, oh, here's a movie and here's a character. So like to Sean's point where, the backstory of all the comics and stuff like that, I don't have that. So anytime I see a character, it's fresh and new every time.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll learn you.
No, I just think this whole concept is very interesting.
It looks like your video froze there, Aurora. Is that just me or?
Yeah, it does look like my video froze. Let's see. It's still frozen.
There you are. You're happy.
Weird. Okay. Yeah, that was really awful. Okay. I'm just going to put this here because you can just hear me.
Okay, fine.
But yeah, we're getting close to the end here.
Yes.
Of the show. I feel like we could go on talking for ages about this topic because there's so many different facets of television. And there's so many interesting storylines. Like, I really love the show The Good Place. Very, again, sitcom-y kind of thing, but completely out of the box. Umbrella Academy is one of the ones that I mentioned. It's, like superheroes, but it's like a huge twist on it, and it has a sci-fi background, and it's very weird and out there. And there's just so many good shows, like, and then from these shows, there's all these things that go along with it. There's like the whole fandoms behind these shows, and people make, fan fiction, and people, make their own art based off of these shows and these characters that they love so much. And experiences are the new thing. Like, like Friends is like a huge show that a lot of people reference and people go back to. It's, one of those classic shows that people love and they quote, and they don't even know they're quoting, or they do know they're quoting. And it's Friends.
How you doing?
And there's this experience now in Toronto where you can go to like scenes of the Friends show. You can go to the Friends kitchen and the Friends house and recreate the, trying to fit the couch up the stairs and stuff like that. And I think it's very interesting that like a show can be that impactful and that much
absolutely
of an interesting thing. Like random side topic, but I am going to one of these show experiences, and you guys are just gonna like probably laugh at me, but I really like the show Bridgerton. Have either of you heard of the show Bridgerton?
Heard of it? Yes. Seen it? No.
Heard of it? Seen it? No. Okay, so it's like period piece based off of these books that were written by this author, and it's from 1813. What I didn't know is when oh my gosh, what's her name? The young girl that we had on the podcast, Claire.
Oh yeah, Claire.
When Claire came on, she talked about a queen that was half like German and half Black descent. And she talked about that. What I didn't know was actually the character, the queen in that show, was based off that Queen Charlotte. So Queen Charlotte is actually in Bridgerton. It's like talking about all sorts of different kind of culture, people coming from different parts of the world, like Prussia and, India and in Asia and stuff like that. And the whole concept of the show is that there's like this gossip tabloid, and nobody knows who writes it and stuff like that. But there's this experience based on the show, and I'm going to be going to it for my birthday. You take pictures and listen to, a classical music ensemble, people with violin and cello, like a full out cello and stuff like that. And there's going to be like a trapeze artist, and you can get cocktails and you dress up. And I think that's just so fun that a show can just bring people together and
totally, yeah,
something interesting from that. So
yeah, never would have thought about an experience concept before. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and it immerses you in a show, right? Yeah. Like if you like it. It's not, I wouldn't say Bridgerton is one of my favorite shows, but I do like it a lot. And I just thought it would be interesting to go to something like this where it's like, it's a mini concert and it's a mini, I don't want to say trapeze, but kind of like trapeze show. And, there's photo opportunities and you get to dress up. I like getting dressed up. So
you sold me a photo opportunity, I tell you.
Lots of photo opportunities, right? So
I've got, before we finish the show, excuse me, I've got two questions for you guys. The first is, have you ever met any TV stars yourself?
Any TV stars? Ooh.
Think about that. The second question is, have you ever been involved in a TV show? Like, for example, I used to be involved in the Jerry Lewis Telethon all the time. I used to go door to door collecting money for the Jerry Lewis Telethon. I don't know if you guys remember that telethon for muscular dystrophy. Jerry Lewis, the comedian, would every year have this huge telethon. He'd be on for like 48 hours or longer, nonstop, smoking his cigarettes and introducing all these acts and raising money for all these things. And there's me, little kid going house to house collecting money. Hey, would you like to give money for the Jerry Lewis Telethon? I'd raise hundreds of dollars every year, and then I'd go on TV and give the money to the person on TV. Yeah, money, yeah. But I mean, it's fun helping out and doing stuff like that. Have you guys ever done anything like that? So first question, have you met any TV stars? And second question, have you ever done anything where you're interacting with a TV show in some way?
Ooh. So I don't think I've met any TV stars or TV show stars. However, I did meet Joe Bowen, the voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs, or like the older voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I had to do a project for school.
You've got his photo.
And I've got a picture of him. I got to meet him very briefly. It was a very quick, I had to set up the photo ahead of time and, say, hi, I'm Aurora. Thank you for letting me take a picture of you today, blah, blah, blah. And it was in the ACC. My uncle at the time, he worked at the ACC and he knew all these people and he got Joe Bowen to agree for a portrait. And
that's cool.
So it's kind of cool to meet him. I'm not a big hockey fan or sports fan in general, but it was really cool to have that experience and photograph someone of that much importance at that time. He only had a certain amount of time, so I think that's pretty cool. I mean, we met Claire, but I don't know if that, we met Claire through the show.
Right.
This show has given us the opportunity to meet some really cool people, like Claire and Tally. The stunt woman.
Sean, I'm sorry that you weren't part of the show back then. Tally is so cool. She was such a great conversation. I loved having her on the show.
Yeah, and she had been on shows, but I haven't met her in person. I met Claire in person, but I would say that they're actually they've been in TV. They have been in pretty famous scenes. I remember the scene that Tally was talking about in Riverdale, where Riverdale is another one of those cheesy shows that I've watched. I haven't watched it all, but I've watched episodes of it. She did the stunt in that show.
She was in this movie. Oh, awesome movie.
Yeah, so cool. And it's really cool that we've met these people from that. And have I ever been in a show? I have not been in a show or been involved in a show. However, I was interviewed quickly on the news once for something. It was actually COVID. It was after COVID, and me and my friends went to grab something for breakfast, and we went into the restaurant, and it was kind of busy, but they had the option for patio, and it was cold outside, so we decided to eat on the patio, and the news reporter wanted to talk to us because we made the decision to eat outside instead of eat inside, and I said that I would talk to them about why I made the decision to eat outside instead of eat inside. This was right after the pandemic, and
the whole debate on
it was
social distancing and
it was a 5 or 10 minute conversation. She used a 5-second clip of it in the news, so
of course that's what they did.
But it was interesting. I mean, that's the only TV related experience I have. How about you, Sean? I guess Sean will be next.
Believe it or not, okay, well, this has not, well, it's TV, but it's not TV that I watch. But you guys, Brian, have you ever watched anything on HGTV?
HGT all the time, yeah.
Do you know Scott McGilvery?
Oh, yes.
I cut his grass.
Oh, right on.
I spoke to him today, actually.
Oh,
so that's pretty cool.
I've met Scott McGilvery. I came almost very close, this close to meeting the voice of my childhood, Kevin Conroy. God rest his fucking soul. He voiced Batman for the longest time in video games.
Yeah, he just passed away, didn't he?
Yeah. He was an old dude, but I could have met him actually when I went to Fan Expo recently, just this summer. He didn't show, which was kind of a bummer, probably because he was ill. But if I had the opportunity to have met Kevin Conroy, I probably would have screamed like a little girl. In terms of ever being on any show or being involved in a show, the only show I've ever really been on is a pod show. This pod show and our pod show. And that's the only show I really get to be on ever. If we do end up, John and I are thinking, we think that way down the line we're gonna have some sort of shot at making a Planet Pointless movie, but I doubt it.
Nice.
But
I want to be a part of that. I want to be the gaffer, or I want to be like the guy that holds the boom stand or something.
Yeah, the dude
the mic.
And then you're gonna be sitting there and you're gonna be shaking the mic because you're laughing as they're talking.
The mic will go into the frame.
I feel like I'm gonna like break the fourth wall a bunch and then just like randomly sit next to Brian and be like, "This is the boom guy. This is
I'm tall.
Brian.
I'll just go. I'm tall."
No, that's really the only show I get to be on ever, and that's fun. And then this show is fun to be on.
Well, I'm glad you think so.
I know so. Come on.
I love it. Well, I was lucky enough to work at Stratton Mountain for a bunch of years when I was in high school, and I was the bellman carrying people's luggage. So I was the bellman for Susan Lucci from All My Children, the guy who flew the helicopter in Magnum PI, a bunch of people, the governor of Vermont, Madeline Kunin. So there was like the people I met back then, and they were always super, super nice. Susan Lucci, by the way, is like super short. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, Susan Lucci. She was the one who tried to get the Emmy or whatever, and she missed it like 14 times in a row and never got the Emmy or something. I think she finally just got one out of pity. I don't know. Anyway, super nice lady, very, very short. And I had my own TV show on Rogers. So there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Day Tripper Television.
That
18
was
episodes.
Cool.
That was fun. It was very bad, but it was fun. And Steve, who works with us, Aurora and myself at Henry's, was actually my producer for that show, which is even funnier because things like that worked out. Such a small world, and I loved it. Anyway, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Aurora, was there anything else you wanted to bring up?
No, I think this has been a really cool conversation. We've been able to talk about so many different interesting shows. And I'm going to be sitting on my couch later and I'm going to be thinking about, oh, The Queen's Gambit, or, oh, blah, blah, blah. And, you
Very
know, they're
impactful shows.
True Detective and like stuff like that I'm just going to be like listening to and thinking about later. And why didn't I talk about that show? But
time. I've got a list still. I've Starsky and Hutch, Lawrence Welk Show, Dukes of Hazzard. I mean, Daisy Dukes. Come on, right?
Dukes of Hazzard. I went to the Dukes of Hazzard Museum. I haven't watched that show, but I went to the museum specifically for Andrew to bring back a souvenir and take some cool photos.
There's so many cool shows.
It's in Nashville, and I went to Nashville.
You should have been there. You should have gone.
So I went. It was great.
Speaking of the Dukes of Hazzard, I came home after work, I think it was like last weekend, and there was a bunch of because there's been like a bunch of Santa Claus parades going, all floats and shit. And there was a couple of cars that passed by the house, and I had them on my Snapchat or on my Instagram somewhere. And I shit you not, the General Lee in all of its glory drove past me, and I was like, oh come back. Oh, I want you.
Yeah.
Such a classic car.
In that museum they had the General Lee car, and they had her Jeep, Daisy's Jeep thing, and
Cooter's tow truck.
Yeah, they had Cooter's tow truck outside the front.
Boss Hogg's Cadillac, I believe it was Cadillac.
I think it was.
I don't know if they had that one, but maybe they did. Yes.
What a show! What a show! Yeah. And it was so much based in racism, but it was so good in so many good ways. Like they didn't really touch on the racism in the show, not that I ever saw. But I mean the flag itself, right?
It's bad.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys.
Yeah, that was one thing I noticed.
This has been a lot of fun. I can keep going, like award shows, talk about award shows. I mean, there's so many really cool things that we've seen on TV. But I think it's been fun kind of going over some of these things. And I think the bigger point of the power that television has is something that should really be taken seriously. And as a parent, which I'm not, but if I were, I would certainly be very careful which shows I would let my kids see, as both of your parents did for you. Right?
Yeah.
So on one hand, it's like, why wouldn't they let me watch these shows? But on the other hand, you can kind of understand how censoring certain things is still very important for raising a child with proper morals and proper ethics and integrity. And I'm proud to say that even though Sean won't admit it, but both of you are very moral and have good integrity. So
Sean shaking his head. But okay, so another one. You know how Sean earlier was saying I haven't seen Harry Potter and everybody reacts with a shock face? I've never seen The Simpsons. The Simpsons.
What? Me
I've
neither.
never watched The Simpsons.
I just finished it. Like not even like a month ago.
And that show has the most episodes. And it's like the longest running show out of all the shows. I have never seen it. I've seen clips of it, like for people referencing things online. And
what about South Park?
I haven't seen South Park. I've seen clips of South Park, and I don't think I would ever like to watch it personally. He quit. And this is all because of the censoring.
All right. I'll forgive you on that
listening. He's not even listening. And this is all because of the censoring that I received as a, I had as a child, right? Like that was not an appropriate, what's it called? Not an appropriate show for a child to watch.
No. You're right.
But even though it still looks like a show that a child would watch because of the animation style and all of that, it's not. And then I just never got around to it after the fact. So
no, and then they took it that one step further and made that movie with the food porn. What was the name of that? I don't even remember the name of that movie
with the food porn. I don't know, but there is a show, the
America show, and then they had the food porn show.
I have an Instagram off of a show, based of a show, where I post empty plates of food based off of a Korean drama I watched. I didn't even.
You are so influenced by TV.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, close this puppy up, Aurora. Let's go home.
Yeah.
I'm home.
Let's have a good night. Thanks for talking with me, Brian and Sean, about TV today. I think we could go on forever, but we're not going to. If I guess anybody who's listening has a good recommendation for a show we could watch, post it in the comments. Reach out to us. Interact with us about the shows that we talked about on the show, like whether you like them, whether you don't, whether you can't believe one of us loves the show
or hasn't watched a show
like The Simpsons. Oh my god.
Or Lost.
I haven't watched Lost either, sorry.
I really don't think we're missing anything.
Yeah.
Simpsons, anyway. You're missing stuff. You're missing stuff with The Simpsons. There's some cultural stuff that improves your world when you watch The Simpsons.
Yeah, but they also predicted that
Trump
was going to be president. So we know how well that turned out. Anyway.
They are led by the devil. That's the real story right there. The devil teaches them everything.
Matt Groening's a time traveler.
Yes, that's it.
Anyway, thanks again for listening and watching, and thanks again, Brian and Sean, for being here. And
thank you, Aurora.
Super excited to be talking about these topics in season 3 of Expressions with you guys. Have a good night or good morning, I guess, to the people watching in the morning. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Bye-bye.